There we go.
And we're back. Another week. 2 more games. No major news, although I haven't checked Twitter, so I guess.
Yeah, we got burned by that once before.
Nothing major we know about, so we're going to go with it. We're just going to run with it. Welcome back to the Den of Thieves podcast. This is Jordan.
This is Cole.
And we're ready to talk about some League, and we're ready to talk about League during a week in which I think this is like our new normal. This is what we should expect. So, we've done 3. This is the 4th one of these we've done. And what we've had so far is Meteos traded, Rift Rivals, and then talking about the new org. So I think this is like our reset week.
Yeah, this is the try to get back to a new normal week, I suppose.
Right. This is like, it's not sustainable. The amount of change we've had since we started this just isn't sustainable. No org can survive that.
Well, we'll settle down a little bit.
We'll settle down, and I think we're starting to settle down here, although we did it in kind of an unusual way.
Yeah, I'll say.
So, go ahead. You had a thought?
I was just going to say, I think there's no better way to frame that discussion than to just jump into the weird game one.
Weird game one.
Weird game one against TSM.
So,
worth mentioning, you and I both got this pick wrong when we discussed how we thought this would play out last week. We both had 100 dropping this game to TSM, who looked at the time like a force to be reckoned with for NA.
No such situation. Yeah, I mean, we thought they were going to come in fighting mad. We thought they'd come in well rested. They'd have time to work on their strats.
And they drafted like they did.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted some champions who were incredibly problematic for us and everybody in NA, really, at Rift Rivals. And they've got a lot of EU players and players with EU kind of, history. So I kind of, when they pulled out the draft, I was like, ooh, maybe we're in trouble here.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, and probably for everyone, was obviously the Heimerdinger and Fiddlesticks lane, right?
Yeah.
The famed problematic lane of this meta, where you have the unreal push that comes out of that, and then the super dangerous Fiddlesticks. So it's just like, when I saw that come out, and I thought about, I had like PTSD flashback of Rift Rivals, and I was, oh my goodness gracious, this is not going to be a fun game. However,
so this was the first game of the first week back from Rift Rivals. So we kind of thought, there's a question of, in my mind, I was thinking through, what's NA going to bring? Because they got to bring something. I mean, we got embarrassed. And so I figured everybody would have been trying to practice on Heimer and Aatrox. We'd seen Funnel's not new for us, but I just figured that they would show up. It does feel a little bit like we are the copycat league at this point. Like, I don't think there's really much argument there. Like, everybody saw those champions and how problematic they were, and they got picked a lot this weekend.
Yep. So it's like, okay, so that's what we're doing this week, guys. Okay.
Right. So Heimer priority, and but when you have copycat situations, some people just aren't as good yet. We heard Afro on the desk talking about how long he thinks it takes, and he said 50 games. So I don't know how many games these guys get in a week on solo, and they've got scrims too. It's going to take them longer than 1 week, basically, to really master champ. And clearly they all have a decent level of proficiency, but to get at like top tier level, it's going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, we certainly saw some of that play out on TSM side for this week. And I will tell you, the glimmering like beacon of hope for me during the draft was seeing someday get Dr. Mundo.
So you didn't get fired up for Zyra Khan?
No, I mean, that's pretty whatever. We're all watching Anda to see what he was going to do.
Yep.
it was a little, I guess it's a little odd to see him take Rakan as the jungler, but
Yeah,
I'm just saying we know what someday is, and the
a
champion that
monster.
he got on was the opportunity to devastate, and clearly that is how we saw it play out.
He did, man. He again was just out of control. It was so good. Um, I thought this was a great game. I really liked the way we brought our, the approach that we brought to this game. I thought the strategy of putting Onda in mid lane with Cody on a support champion. I mean, he's a jungler, right? Like, I don't know that Rakan has ever been a pick in a jungle. It's different if it's like, well, he's, he sees mid and he's a mage, so people kind of like support, but mid. I can't imagine the dude's played much Rakan. But clearly, I mean, he's super proficient with him. Like, he played really well on Rakan.
Yeah, all eyeballs on him, and he looked very comfortable doing what he had to do. Now,
I was shocked.
Yeah, I do want to put a bookmark in a little piece of the end of conversation because I have a lot to say about the position that I felt like 100 Thieves put Anda in for this week in both games, honestly. So I'm going to revisit that. But I will say that, I mean, his stat line, he finished 1, 2, and 13. So we're talking about hyper kill participation in this game.
20 kills total. So that's
for his first LCS start.
Yeah, he was up there at the top. Him and Cody, they were both at the top for kill participation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more than kill participation, right? Like, I don't think actually Rakan is the easiest champ to get high kill participation with, because you got to get in there. Like, you got to mix it up if you want to really contribute to a fight. And they said this during the broadcast, but there were a couple engages that he did that were so slick, like really looked high level, like mechanically complicated, took a lot of timing, things perfectly. But then that one that he had that was a counter engage, which was I think that's what turned the game for us. So
yeah,
for a first game, it was around the Baron, and he jumped into their back line, did the dropped a charm on everybody, and really just kind of like completely scattered their team. And they were really well positioned for a team fight there. I think that would have gone very, very poorly for us if he didn't get in and do what he did. So
not a lot of margin for error on that. But, the way that you said it, you said it really turned the game. And so I want to back up and talk about that, actually, because we did not open strong. Mm-hmm. The game was very boring at the beginning, in my opinion. Like, it's kind of sitting and watching for things to happen.
Yeah, watching turrets get dropped.
Right, yeah. TSM finally gets bot turret at like 9 minutes and an Infernal Drake right after that. We saw Anda with the jitters a little bit, accidentally firing off his stopwatch.
Yeah.
That was pretty embarrassing. And I think once that happened, honestly, this is what I saw. I saw Aframu say, you know what, I'm going to be the vet here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got, a new player who is a little jumpy maybe. And I'm going to just go make some plays and stabilize this thing and let him know, like, hey, no, we're cool. We got this. And the interesting part about that is I don't feel like it worked for Afro at the start.
Yeah.
He was on Pike. He gets sucked into a pretty bad first blood.
Mm-hmm. On Heimer, right?
Yeah, and it leads to the top turret going down.
Yep.
I felt historically, but during this split, the history of this split, our early game has been some of our strongest stuff, right? Like, we seem to open like we know what we're doing, and we it's kind of mid lane, late game where we're not as sure of ourselves in what we're doing. So when I saw this going south during what should be our strongest phase, I was a little nervous about it, though our team comp doesn't really lend itself to dominating early, which I'll talk about that later. But I thought Afro was trying to do too much. Like, he looked like Russell Westbrook in there, where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to start going off. I'm going to force it. Yeah. I'm going to make these plays and just kind of like hone this game for everybody, rein it in.
Yep.
And it just wasn't really going well. And that's why it's so ironic that you point out this turning play around Baron with Anda, because that really did make a difference. Now, while all this is going on, some days being someday.
Doing someday things.
Like this game followed the template that brought us 4, and with this game included 5 wins in a row, right?
Yeah.
It was the Cody Sun funnel, which is almost the distraction, right? It's like the
right,
like a decoy that Cody Sun is funneling, because what really goes on is someday gets in there and hard carries. And lets Cody Sun, I guess, warm up. But right off the bat, someday is going to do what someday's going to do. And gosh, I love that kid.
Yeah, dude.
I just the more I see it, the more I just really enjoy watching him do what he does. And
I don't know if like this was not his MO for the entire spring split. This has really been, I think, toward I'll call it the last third of spring split. We started to see this. He is reliably our best chance at winning so far this split every game we've played. That's not to say that there aren't other people on the team who are contributing in a significant way to the win, but I think he has been the player for us who other teams have the least ability to answer. He gets these incredible advantages in his lane that he kind of gets out of control, right? Like it gets to the point where there's just not a lot of good answers for him.
Yeah, and I would say it usually shows up in the stat sheet. Like you usually get to the end of the game and you say, well, someday went off. But even when it doesn't, when you go back and really watch how he performs, it's great. And he is the most dominant player on the team, which is, we had Aframu being MVP last split.
Yeah.
And now someday is doing the heavy lifting here. And I mean, I just really love watching him do what he does. I mean, TSM had to send 3 out. They had to 3v1 him to finally get a kill on him. And that's just the kind of thing where you draw so much attention, your other guys are going to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and if they're not, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because that's really what his role in the team is, to demand resources be put against him, especially in a funnel comp. It's just that much easier for Cody to get what he needs. So I agree with you on that one. And
it's so interesting because as he's drawing all that attention, Cody is getting his funnel and he's building up, and he's going to go off, which he did. When you look at the end, I think I have it here. I think he's 8-2 and
6.
Yeah, 8-2 and 6. So he clearly goes off. Meanwhile, though, Anda also is just quietly doing well. I mean, this is, ahead of that crazy Baron play he makes, but he's, you don't really notice that he's doing what he's doing. And I have a note, where we finally pull even on kill score. And then it's like Anda's 1-0-7. Like, how did that happen? He's just quietly doing very well and not calling any attention to himself. And then really when TSM gets Baron and they rattle off 4 kills there.
Yeah. And that was all Ryu. And I have been critical of Ryu in the past. He you know what? I think partially some of the comments you made about him last week. I was just watching him and I wasn't looking for him to carry, because I think I understand now what his role is a little bit more. He is he's really kind of a facilitator of plays. Like, his role is not to he's often not even engaging. He just gets in there, he disrupts, he sets people up. He's kind of like the connector. And it sounds like, I think Ando was saying that he's got, he's one of the loudest voices on the team, which I didn't realize, but I think it makes total sense when you look at his play style, right? Like, he really leads from the mid lane. Or at least that's the impression I got in this game. Because that Baron was dicey. That very well could have been when they got the Baron. But he jumped in there. I mean, that was a veteran play for sure. Getting in, hitting the combo perfectly, really scattering them, and then they ended up with 1 surviving member with buff.
Yeah, and it's he plays with a confidence in what he does. Like he doesn't hesitate when he makes plays like that. And it doesn't always work out for him. Like,
No, I
you
mean,
know, the way we
Gold
talk
Guardians.
about Ryu is he's an awesome glue guy and he plays an important role, but it doesn't always come out perfect for him. There are times when he does not look good, like game 2 against Golden Guardians, but
Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah, he's playing confidently and he's going to make the plays that he's going to make, and hopefully it works out. But yeah, just getting all those kills around Baron just really kind of ended this game, right? Because all of a sudden we're up 6-3 turrets. Someday is dominating everyone. Ryu is playing the way he's playing, and then Cody starts to go off too.
Yeah, and Cody just starts killing everybody, and then that's okay.
And it has this like insane, beautiful like flash and knockup.
Yep.
That like just so totally sets off chaos.
Oh,
and
this is the one. Was this one where he hit his E twice, and then flashed forward, and then did the knockup, and then did the charm?
Yeah, and then it was like everybody just scatters at that point. And so he was just in there causing TSM to be disorganized and to not know how to react. And, you know, I don't fully blame TSM when you don't know what to expect out of this guy. You've never really seen anything out of his academy scrims.
I think he played on the senior team last split.
Did he? Okay.
I think so. I don't know if it was a full split, but you know, they've probably gotten some reps with him. But I can always guarantee you they haven't seen his recon.
Yeah, so you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you know, once that's going on, they lock up the win, and Someday is being so good. He's the real threat. The Cody Sun funnel is the luxury option that we have. You know, where it's like, oh, okay, we've got all of these things working for us, and we get the win. And I was surprised, obviously pleased, and seeing Enda start out like that.
Yeah.
Was very refreshing and not what we were expecting.
Not at all. But yeah, but super happy with the way that game went. I feel like that was us at our best, you know.
Yeah, when we have it working like that. But you know, the bad part of that is I felt so great after that game that I was just ready to kick up my feet and watch us take apart Golden Guardian. Just kick this horse and get it done.
Yeah.
That is not how it played out.
Yeah, no, not at all. A couple thoughts on this game before we move on. I think the combination of Cody and Anda in mid lane is really interesting, especially with Anda being a new member of the team. I think it's an opportunity for Cody to kind of develop his own leadership a little bit because he's used to playing with Afro, and Afro is the consummate pro. Like he's a gracious dude. And he says he learns a lot from people he plays with, but you know that he's teaching the people he's playing with more than they're teaching him.
Yep, like the signs say, Afro is daddy.
That's right. And so I think that's a good opportunity for Cody, and I hope we see more of that. And I feel like at this point, you know, it seems to work well. And then, importantly, funnel nerfs are incoming. So I don't know exactly. It might be next patch. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and think about that a little bit more. Because right now, that's our most viable strategy.
So with that in mind, do you think that the second game against Golden Guardians was them maybe running an experiment in advance of the funnel nerfs?
I mean, it could be, and we should talk about it. But to me, it just seemed like we went back to standard. And I think when we've seen this strat, it just has completely fallen flat. You know, the last one I think about is when he played Misfortune, and it was just like, it felt a lot like that game to me, where we never had a shot. We were so far behind, we couldn't damage anybody. Our team fights, we would set up and engage a team fight well, and the damage just wasn't there. We'd have 3-on-1 or 2, and before we could get a pick, they would have already turned the fight on us. So that's a long answer to your question, which is, if it was an experiment, I think it's a concerning one.
Yeah, well, just part of me wonders when you see Golden Guardians on your schedule, if you're going to just relax a little bit, and then you know what's happening. You've also got a new player, so it's maybe a chance to, switch some things up. But let me tell you, I watched the Saturday game with Golden Guardians against, I think it was Clutch, and I saw Mickey go off on Talon.
Did he? Oh, he was playing Talon.
He was playing Talon, which is, I know, your most hated mid lane opponent. He was playing Talon, and he was all over the place. He was just a force to be reckoned with on all sides of the map.
Yeah.
He was roaming like crazy. He had so much movement speed. There was one time where he was corralling the team. Like they were retreating, and he just flanks everybody and corralled everyone like up through their jungle and just did not let them go back. And he's just picking them off one by one as he's going. So I kind of thought Mickey was in his bag, and we were going to see, something be a little dangerous. Now,
we didn't ban Talon, by the way.
We didn't ban Talon. That's exactly where I was going. When the draft happened, I was wondering, did they not see the game from last night?
Right.
Turns out, the Zoe pick happened right away. So maybe, maybe they didn't think they were going to pick mid so quick or something, whatever. But the Zoe came out, so it's whatever. And actually, while we're at it, let's just talk about the rest of the draft. So Sunday on Dr. Mundo and on Trundle, Ryu on Yasuo, Cody-san on Varus, Aframu on Thresh, Lorlo on Gangplank, Contracts on Jinzhao, Mickey on Zoe, ouch. Definitely on Heimerdinger, and Matt on Fiddlesticks. So we had the same bot lane.
Yeah. And have you know about Definitely on Heimer? Have you heard the stories about it?
I have not. Enlightened me.
So they brought in the top NA Heimer player to Golden Guardians to help train Definitely. And it shows.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe that's why he went 4-0-10. Who knows?
It could be.
That could probably be a contributing factor.
Right.
And so the draft felt a little weird because at first it's like, oh, some days on Mundo, we're about to win. And then the Varus pick was really suspicious because that's obviously we're ditching the funnel idea.
Yeah.
And so
Kai'Sa was open.
Kai'Sa was wide open, and it's Varus pick is suspicious. Doesn't seem like they're gonna funnel this time. Mistake. That's what my note is. Well,
yeah. I mean, I think Varus has such weak wave clear. I just think that and really I think that's what it boiled down to. He got absolutely destroyed by Heimer in bot lane. And kind of so badly that I don't think he ever really had a chance to get settled and get his feet under him. And he was just playing catch up, and he was falling far behind. And I think the Zoe was what really cemented it. She was so far ahead. She was just deleting people, man. It was nasty.
And it started right off the bat. Like they caught Anda out before minions were even, in line, and got that first blood. And from it, I don't know if that was like a specifically like, okay, let's go show, Anda what's up.
Yeah.
Or
welcome into the league.
If they just took advantage of a nice opportunity, but they 3v1'd him.
Yeah. Yeah, hit with the sleepy trouble bubble.
Yeah, got hit with the bubble. He was taken off the map. The response was okay, not great. I mean, Anda got a nice gank in there down on bot.
Yeah,
but they got Fiddlesticks, and Heimer still got a kill off during the 3v2, and
on Afro.
So yeah, it was just not great.
I think that goes a little bit to what you were talking about with people. Maybe you weren't, but people. I don't feel confident that people know exactly what Heimer's capable of yet. It's like we had the fight, and I think Afro just got a little complacent with that, thinking that we had it, and it was, the tide was turned, it was in our favor, and he kind of just walked into the range of the rockets, and then boop, that was it.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is like a complete goof play, but Heimer's super dangerous, man. That dude, he's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but I that also kind of brings up something else. I mean, how good is Afro right now?
Yeah.
Not to go against, everybody loves him.
Yeah.
He is, you'd have to say he's the favorite player of the fans on 100 Thieves, and definitely one of the favorites on the whole NALCS. He hasn't really had a split here.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I haven't seen him do much. I've seen him take the pike and get worked on it a few times. He's done okay once or twice. This game on Thresh, he went 0-6-2.
Yep.
I mean, we're kind of maybe seeing an emerging pattern. Like maybe something's off with Aphromoo. Maybe this set of champions that he's getting in the meta just aren't as good. But we're seeing Alistar being played, especially in more standard comps, and he clearly can play him.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, he had some awesome Thresh play in the last split.
Oh,
but it just did not seem to be working this week, and it hasn't seemed to work for a while. So
he even landed a couple hooks, and
he landed one amazing hook.
Yeah.
But there's no damage to capitalize on it.
Yeah, there's nothing coming behind it, and that might be part of it. It's a really interesting question. I mean, I think you look at these two games and you'd say that's, he clearly is not at the top of his game right now. And I think there is something to do with the meta there. I think when you have a funnel strat running, I just feel like there's less need for, or you're relying less on the playmaking ability of a supporting character, because so much of it is, and when you watch these fights, it's Cody shredding, right? Like if they're in range of him, it's not even like they need to be like, we don't have to get a pick. We don't have to put somebody out in the middle of nowhere. He's doing so much damage that he's just mowing people down. Kind of their front line just starts to wilt. If he can get positioned around it, it's game over, So that's one of my thoughts on why we might not be seeing it as much, just because he's partnered next to Cody, and Cody, for these 5 wins we've had, has been pretty out of control.
But when we play standard and he has a shot at it, it's just not going well.
And I think that might be the meta too, right? Like look at this game. I mean, he was 0-6-2. Cody was 0-4-1. He had the lowest kill participation on the team. He was involved in 1 kill. I mean, we only had
from your ADC
6. Yeah. So, I think it is like, if we were with the Guardians and we got the hooks that we did from Afro, we could have turned fights for sure, because you pull somebody, that far back into your ranks, and usually you just turn on them and kill them. It's no problem. But you've got the Zoe there with the poke. She's keeping everybody a long ways away, because if not, you're dead. So
they've got to nerf Zoe, man.
She's been so dominant, and we saw it at Rift Rivals too. Yeah,
we saw it last year.
I think they did nerf her pretty significantly.
They got to do more then, but
another round, please.
Talking about
replayed her, and it wasn't,
Yeah. Well, we did have a bright spot though, and again, it was someday. Like,
yeah, he was our only chance.
This is one of those didn't show up in the stat sheet games. He went 2-2-1, but it almost seemed like he was frustrated and was just, like, I'm going to do some things a little more aggressively because of frustration. And you saw it when they erased our bot lane. They sent 4 over.
Yeah.
And took out our bot lane took out the turret, all in the space of like 10 seconds. And someday just like walks up to the bot turret not too much later and just takes it all down. Just beats it all down. He's just tanking it up. He is just going all out. And I absolutely love watching him do this. It is a pleasure. He almost turns like a big team fight.
Yeah.
Up in like near top turret and jungle up there. Towards the end of the game, he gets so close to turning that thing around. But
it was 1v4, and he stayed in that fight for a long time. And I think he got a kill. I think it was it was a kill on Zoe. He killed Zoe in that fight. The thing that was so frustrating to me and almost sad, it was 1v4, and but there were 3 other members of the team there in top lane. Yeah. But it was still a 1v4. And I kind of went back and watched it. They were just getting zoned out. Like they couldn't even approach the fight. So it should have been, right, if our team was actually close, we should have aced them. It should have been wiped completely off. I don't know what their last person was. I think they're off doing something else. But it was just like, oh, Sunday's trying so hard, and he's doing so well. You know, like it's not like he inted at all. Like he walked in and banged for like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And I will say also, it's like you can't discredit the play of Golden Guardians during these fights, because they did play well. They played the team fights well.
Yeah. I mean, that team is legit. They're 4-4.
Yeah, it's certainly not the Golden Guardians of yesteryear.
No.
They are not the same team, and we're starting to see it. And Mickey is leading the charge.
Yeah. Is he new to split?
Yeah, you'd have to.
I think I heard somebody say that they brought him up, which good move.
Yeah, geez, what he is a star, man. He's absolutely a star.
Yeah.
But so they did play well. Like they did zone us out. They did, what they were supposed to do. So you can't take it away from them. It wasn't just a case of us playing bad. And that's actually, one of my thoughts after I had a minute to kind of sit and think about the game after it was over, because it was over quick.
Yeah.
That it wasn't necessarily that we were playing so bad. It was just kind of like a weird draft, weird team comp. And it just felt like I didn't want to read too much into this loss because of that.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what they were going for with the Yasuo into Zoe. That seems like a nightmare matchup to me on paper, and it was. So,
and this was one of the games where Ryu was really neutralized in this one. And
he was. I mean, and I think you kind of watched him fight, and you're like, what is he supposed to do here? Like,
right, exactly. It wasn't so much a question of what is he doing wrong, but it was kind of just the pick was weird. And so the draft came out a little bit unusual, and the abandonment of the Cody Sun funnel. We lost this game, and it doesn't feel great. But if I'm not mistaken, actually, after games play out, we're still tied for first, I believe.
We are still tied for first. The way things fell. Yep.
And Golden Guardians is sitting at 4-4, so it's not like we need to hit a panic button.
No. Right? No. I think we're far from that. And that, think back to last split. I think we were on like a 5 or 6 game win streak, and we lost to Guardians, and that was our second win, our first win.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something with that too, but we've been here before, unfortunately. And I think the difference this time is that they're a really good squad, and that was not us playing poorly. That was them playing a couple champions right now who are pretty busted, and playing really well, and us not really bringing a convincing. Like, if we thought this was going to be an experimental match, and we picked the wrong one. I guess if you're going to experiment, you need to be confident that it's okay if you lose. But I'd say that this comp is not what is going to take us back to the finals. This is not going to do it. There's no way.
And that kind of, if it's okay with you, that kind of segues into what I want to talk about next.
Perfect.
Which is, where do we stand with Anda? So this is our first week that we get a look at him. And it is my opinion, after watching both games, that 100 Thieves really took a risk in how they approached this weekend, specifically with Anda.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about what you need to do when you call up an academy player into a spot on a new team, I tend to think that you would take that Afro approach I was talking about, which is, let Anda just be comfortable and, get some reps there, get the jitters out while someone else does the heavy lifting. That's not how they approached this weekend at all. In the first game, you at least kept the funnel, but they picked a really not early game comp, right? Mm-hmm. So when you do that, when you pick a comp that is going to lose in lane, you are risking a snowball. What you're saying when you do that is, we're going to hand them the early game because we're confident that later on we'll be able to balance things out once we get a couple items, and we'll be able to turn this thing. Like, we're that confident. I would have preferred that they did something a little safer to start Anda out, because that's, it's a lot of there's a psychological impact of just getting into the game and losing right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is going bad, this is going bad, this is going bad. Like, I wonder, it would be really nice if we could be inside his brain during that first game and see how he was thinking when they played out that first game. And then the second game.
On that first game, though, I mean, I agree. And especially if this is a strat or a champion he's less than confident on, I think it's a huge ask of him. But he must have been feeling really good about, like, he played a great game, right? So do you get is that the risk reward scenario where you take a chance? Does it work? I mean, that's a huge game too, like bringing him in to play against TSM. And so I've got to imagine that he looked at his stat line coming out of it and was like, I can do that. I got this. It's not so bad.
Yes, but I like, you are making a conscious decision to do that before you know the result.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's a risk.
While it worked out for game one, I mean, it was definitely a risk, and maybe a calculated one, maybe one they just got caught up not really thinking about. But I think more often than not, in that sort of situation, you are kind of setting up someone for failure. And I mean, you, like in the NFL,
it's like Brandini.
Like Brandini and Riff Rivals. Or like in the NFL, when you have a young quarterback, you do not put him in right away unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
No rookie quarterback is automatically the starter, no matter how good they are.
Right.
You work them in, you get them reps, you pick your spots, and you're very careful with them, because how they start has a huge impact on how they play for the rest of the thing. And I don't, maybe I'm overstating this. Obviously, game one ended up fine for him. He had an amazing stat line, played great. They got a very important win, all of that. But it was very risky. And instead of stopping there with that risk and being like, okay, cool, they continued to gamble, in my opinion, with the abandonment of the funnel strat that had been working for them.
Yeah.
Like, they went away from what they knew had earned them 5 straight wins at a time when Anda is still vulnerable. It's his second day.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's very responsible of the team to do.
And it could be. I mean, Guardians banned Rakan, Braum, Talia. That was their first round of bans. So they did target the funnel, right? And it might be that probably had to make a quick call there. I mean, those ban timers aren't long, and just said, you know what, with our limited pool, and it could have been that he thought at that time, we're going to be risking more if we do the funnel here, because I think that's the other thing too. I do feel like people are going to get better at playing against funnel as the split goes. So it's an interesting one. It's so weird to me that it's now a risky play for us to just play standard league, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, when you have an advantage that's proven, you step on the gas with it, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It is crazy to think about, but at the same time, that is the way that it's been going for us. And yes, you're right on some of those bans, but there's still room to work with that. And maybe, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe it was a case where
done Kaisa Kench.
Yeah, something like that. But maybe Anda's just not comfortable on the champions that were remaining, or exactly. I don't know. I obviously am not in Prolly's headset, but I just thought that they would take additional steps to kind of protect him a little bit more.
Well, and it does tell us a lot about when I think about standard, I kind of think of it as the fundamentals, right? And I think that there are some teams around the league who continue to win with standard, continue to win on marksman. I know Uzi is still going off. Like, he is having the split you would expect him to after doing what he did at MSI. But I think that's largely in part because he is the best in the world at that job. And his fundamentals are so strong, and the rest of the team is too. So I think if we look at this experiment and say, well, how'd it go? It's kind of like maybe our fundamentals aren't as good as they were last split. And so much has changed that that's, of course, a possibility.
And it would be understandable too.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And I think anytime you introduce a new player, the fundamentals get shaken up. But yeah, just a lot of that. I don't know. Like when you look at the lane matchups, we just lost lane everywhere except for top.
Except for good old Someday up there
Sunday.
eating hot dogs, doing his job. Overall, I'm actually fine with Handa right now. Obviously he had a great first game, and the second game was not so great, but it wasn't terrible. He was 3-6-1 on Trundle in, a game where nothing.
He had half our kills.
He did. He had more kills than anyone. He had more kills than Someday. So it's not like it totally didn't work. And I don't want to overreact to either of these games because this is so new. So I'm feeling like it's still way too early to have any kind of feeling about Anda and how this trade has played out, which is, something that I'm sure everybody's going to be talking about on like Reddit and socials this week. Like, oh, Medios died for this kind of thing. But
oh yeah, I'm sure.
It's too early. It's too early. And he looks
and honestly, the way this game went, I don't think Medios would have made a significant difference. And the plays that I think really, like, there was one questionable, but Ryu did the same thing, right? Ryu walked into a situation where it's like, okay, well, you're dead, and Anda did that once. But I think in a game like that, you kind of expect it, right? Just because I imagine they all start to get a little bit boosted.
Yeah. Well, overall, I think we're just going to probably wait another 2 weeks before we have any sort of feeling on how this is working and how Anda is. I'm fine giving them that time based off of where we are right now. And with the finish from Spring Split, it's not like we have to absolutely crush right now to go anywhere at Worlds.
Right.
So we're sitting in a good situation, and there's no need to put any more pressure on him or to flame him or whatever. I think we all just should be pleasantly surprised with game 1.
Yeah.
Maybe game 2 met our expectations. So why would we be upset?
That's a way to think about it too. We went into this week, you and I, both acknowledging the very real possibility that we would come out 1-1. It happened in the way that we didn't anticipate it to happen, but I wouldn't say that it happened in a disastrous way either. So, and I think I think you learn a lot from this, and I hope that that's like, if communication was one of the reasons that this change was made with Medios and Anda, then I hope that they communicate a lot about this, because there's a lot to talk about, especially if we think about the funnel changes that they're trying to bring in. Like, we have to find our new win condition, and we've got to find it really quickly. I think, like, if we're talking about what could work, what I want to see us try more of, I think Ryu looks awesome in bot lane. And I think we saw this before the trade happened too. Ryu plays really well in bot, right? And it's a mage meta. Mages are being played in bot lane. Like, put Ryu back in bot. Like, I think if there's anybody, and then he can learn counters to Heimer, like, put him on that job, I think. I don't know. I guess if you can't funnel Cody, then what do you do with him? But
therein lies the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, can we get creative? Like, can we come up with some new strats? Can we develop something? I don't know. Maybe that's
I don't know. And I think it would be a reach to really put too many resources and too much time into that, because, like I said, it's too early to know where we stand with him and with this new team comp, but there's no reason to be in any sort of panic right now.
No, I agree. It's one of those, it's like, you can kind of see what's on the horizon, right? And I think we are one of the teams. I guess I haven't watched everyone's games that much, but we've kind of made our name this split on funnel. So we'll have to see what our name is if that changes, if they change that proposition.
Yeah.
But I think we can do it. I mean, we've got, like we talked about before, we have enough playmakers on the team. We have enough really talented players that I think we'll adapt. We weren't running funnel last split, right? So we picked that up pretty quickly. Like, we'll come up with whatever's next. I just hope we don't get caught flat-footed. Like, I hope that they are having a similar conversation right now of like, all right, what is our next shot? Like, what are we going to scrim this week? Like, what are we going to mix it up with a little bit here? Because you want to ride the wave as long as you can. but you also don't want to just be left out in the middle of the ocean when it goes away.
Wow, what a nice metaphor.
Look at that.
That was beautiful. That is an automatic finish that topic. Nothing more can be said because of the beautiful images in my mind that came from your
thing. Of all 5 of our players on surfboards just hanging out in the middle of the ocean.
Because they got stranded.
And they were riding a wave into the middle of the ocean, apparently.
Yeah. Well, dude, don't take this apart. It was so good.
I've deconstructed it.
All right. So let's cut that off. Let's talk about the content coming out from the team this week. Starting with the What's Not Given episode, where they really focused on Rift Rivals and specifically Brandini and Levi.
Yeah. A couple of things I was really glad about on this one. I thought it was a good episode. I know some people were saying like, whatever. I'm glad they let Levi just speak in Vietnamese. Like it's so hard. And I feel like he's already trying to learn so much that like,
and he has learned
so much, right? So I was glad that they said, just do what is easiest for you in this one. So it was, and the other thing I think too, it's nice about that is you really get to understand more what's in their head and what they're thinking, because there's no like, you're not getting the filter of them trying to put it together.
You can't express your complex thoughts and emotions in a language that you're just learning.
Right. So. Wouldn't expect that. Yeah. What is clear though is the dude is hard on himself. He feels like he's not playing to the level he should be, which I don't think people would argue. I was actually going to ask you about this, like from a traditional sports perspective. I feel like we do see this quite a bit, and I feel like we've even seen it with Someday and Ryu, where I feel like they've really blossomed over the last split. Like I feel like spring split was it took some time for them to really like for Someday to turn into what he's become. And I know he was good before he got here. I'm not like, don't get me wrong, but just the dominance that he's had this split. So like for somebody to come like Levi, who has on the global stage at Worlds just gone off. I mean, it seems like a pretty sharp drop, and I feel like he's feeling it too. Like he must have felt good about Worlds 2017. So it must be kind of a shock for him to come here to Academy and then get rolled, right? And then to go back to a global stage and also have a pretty rough outing against I don't know exactly who he was going off against at Worlds, but I would guess that there are some like top tier teams there. It's not just, I'm guessing, the smaller regions that he was doing really well against. So what do you think about that? Like somebody who's coming from a place where they're comfortable, where they know the game and they're playing in a new environment. Like how typical is it that somebody just doesn't really transition that well?
Well, I mean, you referenced traditional sports, and I think the NBA is where you see this happen a lot.
Really?
With foreign players that come over from Europe, and they've had experience in European leagues, which are quite good these days, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not it's not the 90s where the NBA is its own world and nothing else is even in the same galaxy. Right. The NBA is still the best league, but some of these European leagues are fantastic, and you get players who come over and they're in the same position as him, where you have two main things that are at play. Language, like you already mentioned, obviously communication is an issue. I would say more in league than in other things, because at least in like basketball, you're all out on the same court seeing all the same things, and it's physical
right.
more than anything else.
That's a good point.
And some the communication just happens in a different way than like over a headset. Where it's already like you've spoken foreign languages, you've lived in foreign countries, that in person it's a lot easier to speak that second language than like over the phone or whatever. And so that's an exacerbated challenge. And then the other thing is just everybody plays differently in the different league.
Yeah.
So Gigabyte Marines is going to play way, way different than NA teams are going to play. And so he has to adjust to that. It's a play style thing too. We're going to get to see an intriguing example of this actually in the NBA this season. There's a kid named Luka Doncic who just came over. He was I think he's like Slovenian or something like
Yeah.
that, but he was playing in a Spanish league and he was like the best player. He's only 19 years old.
Wow.
He's got crazy size and all these abilities and stuff. And so he's been taken by the Mavericks, who took Dirk Nowitzki back in the day and made him into, the player that he is.
Hall of Famer.
So we're gonna, see that play out with him. And my guess is it's gonna look a lot like Levi.
Yeah.
The good news
there'll be an adjustment period.
Yeah, there's an adjustment period. And the good news is when players have a lot of skill, like clearly Levi was, he was a top candidate to bring in.
Well, and even in this video, Brandini says he was talking about that Graves base defense.
Yeah.
If you think that's the best Levi, it's like, it's not even close.
Right.
So Brandini plays with him a lot. He sees what he can do. And he's like, yeah, that was pretty good, but that's not like max Levi.
Right. And so when you have somebody who clearly has the skills in place, usually they pan out. It's the prospective players where those obstacles can kind of overcome them. So I would be optimistic on Levi. And the way he's talking about his approach and the way he played at Rift Rivals, in this video, I buy into it.
Yeah.
He looks like he is on a mission to become this force in NA. And there's no reason to believe it won't work out for him.
Yeah, I would really like that. Talk about experiments, right? I wonder if part of the experiment here is just to like the first game at Rift Rivals, they went in and they built it around Levi.
Yeah.
Was this just them saying like, hey, be patient. Like here's a display of raw talent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what you can look forward to, kind of thing. Might be. I mean, we talked about Levi enough last week that we need to go to it in great detail. But yeah, I mean, the things I took away from it, he's super hard on himself. He's incredibly hardworking, is what it seems to me. I know he's smashing solo queue all the time. So he's just playing a lot, which is great, right? NA solo queue, he's playing against, that's to your point of like new players, new strats, all that stuff that changes. So that should help. And then Brandini, I mean, again, we've talked a lot about that. So this is kind of a rehash of a lot of what we already said last week, but
I think there's an additional perspective on Brandini from this video. And it was kind of like, it's like this kid who's very likable, like personality wise. He was so likable in the video.
Yeah.
That you just felt bad for all the criticism and all the targeting. And, like he really got dragged through the mud for Rift Rivals. And
even that, I can't remember which one it was, maybe Splice. I think it was Splice where he went off on Mundo.
Yeah.
Crowd chanting his name, right? How cool is that? And that's, it's still clearly like that's what he's remembering. And that's what he talked about in his interview. He's like, it was a bad game yesterday. It's like, bro, you just completely destroyed this game. Like, enjoy the moment a little bit. Come on. Yeah, I felt bad for him. And I think it's a good reminder. Let's do another like PSA here. Like, bad games are going to happen, especially when you're set up to have a bad game. Like, you should expect that. And, don't dwell on it.
Yeah. And I just, it's like I was guilty of jumping on the anti-Brandini train. And then just seeing like how likable he is. It's like, oh yeah, a real person. I knew that, but gosh, he's a likable kid, And so even if he ends up being a permanent academy player, a permanent, bench guy, sometimes it's so valuable to have those people around.
Yeah.
Just because they lighten the mood and, people enjoy spending time with him. I don't see why that wouldn't be the case with him.
Yeah. So. I think that's a good transition to the next topic. Before we get there, I do want to say briefly for Brandini, I think they did a really interesting thing in this one, which was, I don't know if this is just the way they'd framed up their interview questions for him, but the way they were talking about it made it seem like he's kind of the leader of the academy team. I don't know if that's true. But just like, I feel like they talked about shot calling and like, but maybe it could have just been the natural interaction between a top laner and a jungler, right? Trying to set up some ganks and things like that. I'll be interested. And I hope that they talk a little bit more about like who is kind of the emerging Um, like, what is the makeup of that team?
Driving the head of Voltron.
Exactly. Who is the head of Voltron? I want to
Yeah.
know who the head of Voltron is too. See, we're kind of getting this through bits and pieces, right? Like, was it Brandini talking about? Or no, it was Anda, I think, talking about Ryu and just kind of the role he plays. And
Yeah.
It's
interesting to see that stuff. And I think Rikara probably is someone who's up there as well for the academy team, but time will tell. And, when it comes to mood and
yes,
the vibe of the team and everything, that's where this Rocket Mortgage house update video was pretty interesting. Like,
it's not a heist.
It's not a heist. It's clearly like a sponsor required video, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it so well. I don't
enjoyable.
mind the sponsorship aspect of it. It's nice to see inside and see what's going on.
For sure.
I didn't really know that the property is like one property, but it's really divided between the two houses.
Yeah.
I didn't really realize that. I thought it was kind of just one, building that was being shared. But it was just incredible to see the tone of everything change from being in the academy house and going into the LCS house. Like, academy was pretty lighthearted and, laid back. And then you go over to the LCS house and it's like, they've got all these inspirational things on the wall. They've got like the decals.
That's new stuff. That's new.
Yeah. All that stuff where it's just like, okay. And then he's like, hey, I don't want to be too joyful in front of the camera here because they've got this going on and this going on. And, it's just like, and this is after Meteos is out of there. Like, imagine what it was like when Meteos was still in there, if all the chemistry issue talk, is legitimate. Man, that was a heavy, heavy room. And they've probably been playing like 16 hours a day together for days and days and days trying to get ready for this. And so I'm sure that's part of it, but man, the energy in there is just sucked out of the room. And that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
That really makes me nervous.
It honestly, it seems typical to me. It feels like it completely fits what I would expect based on the way that the team kind of interacts and carries itself in a lot of the videos we see, like in the team room, in fan time after the matches. There, and I think that the point you made on like this was probably after like 8 hours of scrims. I think that is a big part of it. Like, I feel like it's work. Like they're working. And like I thought the meals seemed fine. Like, it doesn't seem like people are kind of like heads down, like just like shoveling gruel into their mouth.
Right.
Like, they get that camaraderie, and they could have just got whooped at a scrim. Like, who knows? But I think one of them said they did win. So I don't know. I've thought about that, and I feel like that's one of the things that seems like a real, with gaming in particular, I think as a professional endeavor, burnout seems to be a real issue, more so than
I'm nodding my head.
Yes, it's all the way up and all the way down for those who aren't watching the video. But that's such an interesting thing, because I don't feel like you get that as much with basketball, right? Like, ball is life is the thing for basketball. I don't feel it, and it's not just league; it's any game, any professional game. I don't feel like you hear that as much, and I think partially it's just because of the insane hours that people put in on this. Like, you can't play basketball for 14 hours a day because physically you would run out of gas.
Yeah, exactly. I have so much to say on this topic about like the changes in the approach from the teams that need to happen for the health and well-being of the players.
Yeah.
And we need to make that like either its own pod or, just a huge part of a pod coming up here, because, I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but you're absolutely right.
Give us your, I'm really interested to hear, and I know we're coming up right on an hour, so I don't want to go too long, but give me like the 30-second, I want to know yours so I can start thinking about it and know where your head's at on the topic.
Well, the biggest thing is that without taking advantage of the Players Association that has been provided to them by Riot,
right,
they are going to be in some serious trouble. The health of the players is terrible. They're going to burn out. You're going to keep seeing people retire when they're 22 years old because they can't keep up. It's not just like, oh, my fingers aren't as fast as they used to. It's I've been grinding like this forever and I cannot take it. There is a fundamental difference that you pointed out between physical sports and esports. And physical sports, there is a clearly recognized limit to how much you can do what you're doing.
Right. And you see it and you feel it.
At this time, the teams are not treating, you know, the performance of the players in the same way.
Yeah.
And having them in a house together is bad for that as well.
I was actually thinking about that.
Never leaving the environment that you play in.
Yeah.
So that you never have that like mental like cleanse that happens.
Right.
And that you're just pressured even more to be playing all the time, because if you're in the house and it's your time off or whatever, but you look over and like someday is, you know, just grinding out solo queue games or whatever, it's like, well, I gotta play solo queue too, or else I'm not gonna look like I'm working.
I want to be someday.
Right. And then not to mention the fact that, like, you know, I think I read that the average salary for these guys is like $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
So there are people like Someday who I think is making like $700,000 or something like that. So there are people who are well paid.
Yeah.
Right. But $100,000 in LA really isn't that much.
Nope.
And your housing is tied into that.
Oh, really?
That is a problem as well. Being in a team house, like, okay, I make $100,000 a year, and then suddenly, like, if I'm dropped or traded, it's like, no, I am out of here. And your boss can like hold that specter of housing over your head. You know what I mean? So just the way that they are doing this, it's like reminiscent to me of like mass production factories when they were new, where everybody's overworked, maybe underpaid. Definitely for the work they're putting in, they're underpaid.
Yeah.
And there are just going to be so many issues that emerge. And the only avenue to take care of that is to work with the Players Association, get lawyers on board, you know, get some organizational people that really understand what needs to be done to preserve the players and take advantage of that. So that's kind of like the
core of what you're thinking.
Of what I'm thinking. But I see it when I see into the LCS house.
Yeah.
That is not sustainable.
So, and a really quick anecdote that I'll drop before we call this one a wrap. When we did our league day, this was several months ago, we just played league all day long. Everybody was actually tired by like 5 p.m.
I remember that. So for those listening, we have a group of players that we play with, and we're all like, you know, we're not serious players. No one like is sitting there.
And at this point, we all only been playing for a few months. So
we've only been playing for. But I remember that very clearly because like I couldn't make it for the first part of the day, and then like at the end of the day when I was ready to go, everybody's like, "Nah, man,
pretty beat.
Like, we're good." But that's their life. That's their life, and they play a lot more than that, you know.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah.
So here's what I'll say. We're basically halfway through the split, right? Because we've got 4 weeks down plus Rift Rivals. So there are five weeks left.
Yep.
We're sitting in a good position. The trade is too early to make a call, but we're sitting in a good enough position. And I feel confident enough with Anda that we'll be at least capable of making a deep playoff run. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see them at Worlds. I think that there's so much change going on within NA that it kind of neutralizes the ill effects of the changes and shuffling within 100 Thieves. I think clearly right now with Anda playing and Someday and Ryu playing, that is the best possible package we can offer.
Yep, I agree.
I don't think we should see Levi for this split. And maybe we can talk about that for spring of next year. But I think, you know, it's too early. I am good with this team comp going forward. I'm going to ride it out. And I like I said, I think they're going to do enough that you're going to see them at Worlds, and we're just going to hope for the best there.
No, I totally agree. And I think it's one of those where it's kind of like, you know, this is the bed you've made. So, you know, go with it. We have to see how Anda does. Further disruption in the squad. This split is essentially compromising our ability to get to Worlds, because I think, this squad is good enough to get us there. How good will they do there? I think is a serious question mark. But
I don't think there's anyone from NA that can really do well at Worlds.
as NA currently stands, yeah, I would agree with that too. There's a
So-
lot of parity in the league right now. I mean, we have like 8 teams tied for, all within one game essentially of first place.
Right.
Wow. Okay, playoffs. Here we go.
Yeah. That said, so we got upcoming games. Echo Fox on Saturday. How are you feeling about that?
They just beat TSM this weekend. So TSM 0-2.
They beat G2 in Rip Rivals.
They beat G2. I think they just got a new head coach. So
I did not know that.
Clearly, it was still there's still enough of a unit to beat TSM. That'll be a tough match for us. Do you want me to make a prediction here?
Absolutely.
All right.
Where your mouth is.
I think we win. I think we go back to what's worked for us, and I think we win.
All right. I'm going to differ from you on this one, and I'm going to say, even if we go back to the funnel, I think we're going to get taken down. And I also predict that the fan reaction is going to be way too much, and that we're going to need to remind everybody to chill out.
So tune in next week when we remind you it's okay. Exactly. Yeah. Chill out.
And maybe a lot of that will also ride on the Sunday game against FlyQuest. Yes. This is because of the Meteos thing.
Yep.
Are we going to see Meteos?
Oh, I would be surprised because they just beat Liquid and they beat Liquid with Santorin.
Yep.
So I think it would be a huge. I mean, I'm sure he would understand if they brought Meteos up to play against us, but it's going well for them. Like they're 4-4, so kind of seems silly to do that just for the drama. But who knows? Who knows?
I worry a little bit that we'll over prepare for Echo Fox and not prepare as much for FlyQuest. But at the same time, I don't see us losing 3 in a row. And I think we're going to drop to Echo Fox, but I just don't see us losing 3 in a row. So I'm going to call 100 Thieves over FlyQuest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We've got an insider. It's going to be a really interesting split because there are going to be very few weekends where we're going to say we've got 2 gimme games, or 2 games that we clearly should win. Right now, I think anybody can take any game, so it'll be close. It'll be a close split. It's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, I think I'm going to call. Seems weird to say something. I'm going to call it 2-0. We'll see what happens.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, good sir.
I'm gonna get on the optimism train. Here we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, send those good vibes my way throughout the week so we can get this thing done. One more thing before we go, merch alert, because Nadeshot confirmed that the new camo hoodie that he has worn in some of the recent league content is going to be dropping this Saturday at noon. And I believe that's Pacific time for all of those who need to set your clocks to make sure you get the merch. I mean, the jersey sold out in 8 minutes. Last drop. So people love hoodies, man, and this is going to be limited edition according to the video as well. So really? Yep. So set your clocks. Dang. Get your credit card ready. Grab that hoodie. We're gonna try and get one and have it here on the show to do a little live merch review if possible. So
we should do an unboxing.
Yeah, do an unboxing on the pod. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully we'll get our hands on that so we can show you. Anything else for this week?
That's it. It's a good week. Hopefully we get another good week next week. And we'll be back on Sunday night live to talk about it, and Monday morning broadcasting to your podcast/YouTube channels for viewing.
Yep. In the meantime, give my man Anda some slack.
I sent him a nice tweet. I said, "Good job, man."
Send him a nice tweet. 100 Thieves, if you're listening, which you're not, give my man Anda some media training too, so that the interviews don't go as badly as that other one.
Thank you, Cole. Thank you for saying it.
And let's be ready to talk about this next week. And,
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
We'll be back with more. This has been Den of Thieves. Thank you for listening and or watching.
We're on the Apple Store now. So
hey.
We're in the Apple Music, whatever. So you can subscribe to our podcast on your iPhones, iPads, your various Apple products. Like, subscribe, review. Do all that stuff for us. So we appreciate it, and we'll be talking to you again.
All right, catch you guys next week. Peace.